65 years ago, the famous explorer Wilfred Thesiger, known in the Middle East as Mubarak bin London, crossed the Rab al-Khali, the empty quarter, the world's largest sand desert, on foot and by camel. Now former Gurkha officer and seasoned polar explorer Adrian Hayes.
We want to do this in the style Thesiger had 60-odd years ago.
Along with two Emirati companions, Saeed Rashid al-Masafri and Ghafan Mohammed al-Jabri, are planning to travel 1,600 kilometers across one of the Earth's hottest, driest and most unforgiving places.
The sun is beating down on us.
In Thesiger's footsteps.
You just realise that this is a hard place to travel through, hard place to live, hard place to survive.
This is the story of two great adventures. Salalah, the second largest city in Oman, and the start point of both Wilfred Thesiger's first expedition and Adrian Hayes' own journey across the empty quarter. When Thesiger set off from here on the 25th of October 1946, this was just a small fishing town. Today, it's a thriving city with nearly 250,000 inhabitants.
The idea of doing this trip started when I served with the Sultan of Oman's armed forces 20 years ago. It was then, and at that time as well, that I first heard about Wilfred Thesiger and his journeys through the empty quarter.
Thesiger spent 5 years exploring and mapping the empty quarter, often in the company of two young Arabs, Salem bin Kabina and Salem bin Gabaisha. They all lived as Bedouins, riding camels and sleeping under the stars.
I thought, what a great feat this would be to redo this one day, to cross the empty quarter all the way to the UAE.
After spending the last 20 years dreaming of this trip, finally Adrian is ready to set off. He and his team go through their last-minute preparations on the beach in Salalah.
This one. Okay.
Mabsut.
Just like Thesiger, Adrian is also being accompanied by two Arabs through his travels. Both Saeed and Ghafan are officers in the UAE's armed forces.
I want all with me all the time. So I want this here. I put here, it's okay.
26-year-old Saeed is one of 12 children.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن شاء الله اليوم بتبتدي الرحلة تاريخ 31/10 وإحنا حاليا على ساحل بحر وإن شاء الله نطلب من الله التوفيق إن شاء الله والنجاح.
27-year-old Ghafan is married and is expecting his first child during this trip.
الموقع الحاضر ساحل البحر صلالة وإن شاء الله الرحلة متوجهة إلى أبو ظبي وإن شاء الله يتمم على خير. أمورنا طيبة.
Okay. Mabsut.
We want to do this in the style, the equipment, the food and the conditions that Thesiger had 60-odd years ago. So the aim is to do it as much as possible as he did in the 1940s.
But first they have to ride their camels through the morning rush hour of Salalah, something Thesiger never had to contend with. Wilfred Thesiger was born in 1910 in Addis Ababa and became known as one of the world's great explorers and travel writers.
Thesiger, Mubarak bin London, as he was called to the Arabs, was an icon in this part of the world. His books are famous, well printed throughout the whole region.
Between 1945 and 1950, Mubarak bin London did 2 big crossings and 6 smaller trips across the empty quarter. His tales of these great adventures were captured in his famous book, Arabian Sands.
A cloud gathers, the rain falls, men live. The cloud disperses without rain and men and animals die. It is a bitter, desiccated land, which knows nothing of gentleness or ease. No man can live this life and emerge unchanged. He will carry, however faint, the imprint of the desert, a brand that marks a nomad.
The plan is for the team to combine several of Thesiger's journeys across the empty quarter. Starting in Salalah, they will travel along dried-up riverbeds to Mugshin. Then they'll turn north into the empty quarter, shadowing the Saudi border, before crossing into the United Arab Emirates at Zamul. From here, the team will head to Meziera for the UAE's National Day on the 2nd of December. Then they'll head east to Fort Jahili and Al Ain, before finally going west to reach Abu Dhabi on the coast. At last, Adrian and the team are out of the hectic city, and all is well.
Assalamu alaikum, Saeed. Abu Ali Mabsut. We're actually on our way, and I'm just looking up at the sky, the blue sky, the weather's great. The camels are doing great with all this traffic and things, so I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
But only 3 hours and 10 kilometers into their 1,600-kilometer journey, disaster strikes.
Is that Adrian?
Something has spooked the camels, and Adrian, the least experienced rider, has been thrown off. He's on the ground, unconscious. Adrian has a serious head injury. The film crew administer first aid.
It's about a 2-inch gash. You've got a bit of tissue coming out of there. Okay, can you get me a bottle of clean water, please? You feeling faint at all? Is it hurting?
Yeah, it's a bit sore.
So what happened?
So the camels got a bit frightened, and it started to buck, and it literally was like being in a rodeo. I started to slip off. I think he jerked again, and I fell right on my head.
Okay. All right, so you can remember what happened?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good, okay.
It needs stitches, or we can carry on?
No, you've got a deep 2-inch gash on your head. Okay. It's going to need serious stitching up.
As well as the cut, Adrian has been knocked unconscious, is feeling sick, and has a throbbing headache. All signs of a potentially serious head injury. He needs to get to hospital fast.
You won't fit. It's fine.
Adrian's taken to Salalah's main hospital, where he receives immediate medical attention. His head injury requires a local anaesthetic and 13 stitches.
It was painful. So, it's a bit painful now, but we'll get over it.
Because of the injuries sustained, the team are forced to abandon the start of their expedition and return to a hotel in Salalah. Adrian's keen to catch up with his fellow teammate Ghaffan, who's just been released from hospital too.
Assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam. Oh, Rahi. Here we go. Hey, Alex Ghaffan.
شوارك
Okay. كيفك؟
والله الحمد لله good. Death.
After Adrian was thrown off, Ghaffan and Saeed tried to control their camels, but eventually they both came off. Saeed's all right, but Ghaffan suffered a head injury.
He was talking gibberish for, he was running around asking where his rifle was apparently, and calling people different names than they were. So he's in a pretty bad way. And Saeed, his camels took him 5 kilometers. He couldn't stop them after that distance. So he ended up getting off, and he was kicked in the head by another camel running over him. So all in all, it was an eventful start. Good start.
Luckily, none of the team has suffered long-lasting effects from the dramatic start. But that evening, an unseasonal tropical storm hits Salalah, bringing torrential rain and storm-force winds. Overnight, Tropical Storm Kayla has wreaked havoc across the region, killing at least 14 people caught up in flash floods. It'll be another 5 days before the expedition can resume. For Adrian, it's a chance to catch up with Thesiger's own journey. When he set off from Salalah for his first crossing of the Empty Quarter, the local dignitary insisted he take an entourage of tribesmen and camels to help him on his journey and to protect him from marauders deep in the desert. At that time, it was a wild, dangerous and lawless place. Today, it's still a wild country, but modern rules and laws now reach deep into the heart of the Empty Quarter. 6 days later, Adrian and the guys are back on their camels for the first time since the fall. They're heading north. The dry sand and gravel plains that stretch out in front of them will be home for the next 38 days.
So we've now entered Wadi Ayoun. This is where Thesiger came through 60 odd years ago. And this is a major wadi from the Dhofar Mountains that brings all the water, all the rainfall from the monsoon and comes all this way and feeds the villages to the north. So it's great to be in here. It's lifeline for the villages, lifeline for the peoples, and it's sort of life for us.
As they carry on down the wadi, the temperature starts to rise.
The sun is beating down on us. We're pushing through it. Well, yeah, I don't do very well in heat. And previous experience from around 10:30 in the morning to 3:30 in the afternoon, it just becomes a bit hard going.
As the searing heat hits 45 degrees in the hemmed-in wadi, the discovery of a pool left over from the flooding is an unexpected treat.
Oh, that mate. Oh, very cold. Not cold, Gafan.
والله very cold.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The team carry on through the heat of the day until they encounter an Omani friend of Adrian's who's especially come out to meet them.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Khalid. هلا كيفك كيفك؟ هلا بالك. كيفك يا اخي؟ صديقك. هاي دوي. سيري.
مرحبا. سالم اسمه.
سالم.
كالحالة.
سالم كيف
حالك؟ طيب. الله.
Sheikh Khaled bin Tufel Al-Katiri wants the team to stop for lunch.
اليوم بيكون الغداء هنا. احنا بنسوي الغداء. غداء ذبيحة. بنذبح. هنا.
شيخ خالد. والله سيارة.
نسوي.
But Saeed and Gafan are determined to press on, so it's agreed they'll meet later.
قدامه خيار الرب توهم ماكلين ويقرصوا عندنا تونا يقرصوا نحن
ايوه
خاصين تونا
احنا عندنا
سوى عشاء.
Sheikh Salem has a particular interest in the expedition.
الشيخ سالم يعرف الرحلة أول.
عرف مين؟
عرف الشيخ سالم يعرف تيسيجر.
أنا يجون هذه الطريق رحلة وركاب وأنا في بدل الوادي أنا أذكر المرة إحنا قريب مني.
شو تعرف مشان مبارك بن لندن؟
إيش تتذكر؟
ما أتذكر أسماء بعض أذكرها أنا معرفها لاني لكن أعرفها مع الرحلة وهو عقيد يقوم ومع الشيوخ ومع كلهم بكثير كلهم كبير منهم صغير وركاب وكل شيء. أنا أسمع بهم يقولون والشيخ مبارك معهم.
كيفه؟
سلم بالطفل هذا ابوه هذا الرجال اذا زاد هم اضواء قد شويه.
ايوه.
بندق كم؟
بندق هي؟
واللحم نعم.
Sheikh Khaled heads off to prepare dinner.
It is hot. It really is. It's hot. The heat's burning down. It'd be lovely just to stay under this tree for an hour or so, but we've got to make some distance. We've got to get moving. Another 15 to 20 kilometers to go.
While the team carries on through the rising heat, Further downstream, Sheikh Khaled has slaughtered a goat for dinner. As the day draws to a close, Adrian, Ghafan and Saeed arrive.
مرحبا صاح مرحبا صاح السلام عليكم.
Word has spread of the expedition, and local tribesmen have come to meet the adventurers, to hear their tales, share the news, and join in the feasting.
كيف حالك؟ واجد حار اليوم.
Everyone sits down to a traditional meal of goat and rice.
والله ممتاز. أنا مضبي على العادة اللي عندنا الطبيعة. نعم.
بسم الله.
عشت.
Adrian, Ghafan and Saeed enjoy the well-earned meal as the feasting carries on into the night. Thesiger also enjoyed, indeed relied on, the same kind of Bedouin hospitality on his journey across the empty quarter. Coming up, the team find water deep underground.
Water is now number 5, yes? 7. Number 7.
And face the dangers of the Samin quicksands.
That's why the boys don't want to go through here. 9 inches of soggy, sandy mud, basically.
"6 a.m. and Adrian Hayes, his support team, and his 2 companions, Saeed Rashid Al-Masafri and Ghafan Mohammed Al-Jabri, are preparing for their 10th day, journeying across the empty quarter in the footsteps of Wilfred Thesiger.
Yes, Bashash, it's me again. Gonna look after me today, aren't you? You're not gonna buck me? They are extremely inquisitive animals. They notice everything. You know, a car's a kilometre away, terrain that's mud, they know it's slippy, they might want to go, so they seem to know everything. So, and as you can see, temperamental.
A few hours later, as the team continue down Wadi Gadoon, they come across the ancient watering hole of Mishdeed. The only way down is to scramble from one level to the next, holding on to a makeshift rope. Each section's a 20-foot climb down into the pitch black.
Ghafan, you coming down? No.
We reached the well of Mishdeed 2 days after leaving Ayoun. The water was at the bottom of a natural hole in the limestone rock, and the Arabs told me it was 45 feet below the surface.
And the water is now number 5, yes?
7.
Number 7, the water. We're now at the bottom, and we're at the water. And Saeed here says it's okay to go in the water. There we go. I'm on the bottom. It's nice and cool. I'm sure it's drinkable. Well, it is drinkable. I'm going to drink it. Tastes like good water. Bit of dust on the top, but there's nothing. Yeah, and it goes under, I think, under that way, I think, further down.
So, do people use this for water right now with their camels?
Well, we have a little now, small machines now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is a little bit easy. But before, talking
Gotcha.
about...
Okay, there's the difference now.
Yeah.
So they still use the water, but they use a pump now, which makes sense.
Adrian and his guide, Saeed Musallam Al-Katiri, climb 90 foot back to the surface. On the way, Saeed teaches Adrian an old Bedouin song, sung to the camels to let them know the water is coming. The team head off, carrying on down Wadi Gadoon as another day in the desert unfolds. The day after visiting the well, they are joined by an entourage of 4 Omani camels and their riders, who will accompany them to the border with the UAE, 800 kilometers away.
We are very happy. There are our new friends. They are from Oman. They are good guys. We say welcome, and we say thanks, Oman.
There we go.
They ride on, clocking up the miles, slowly heading north. Up till now, they've made their way following wadis, dried up riverbeds, and travelling across gravel plains or subkas. Now they're heading into the proper sands of the Rab al-Khali, the empty quarter.
اليوم الحمد لله أنجزنا تقريبا قطعنا في النهار فترة الصباحية تقريبا 30 كيلو لكن الحمد لله الأمور كلها طيبة إن شاء الله ولو بغونا في زود إن شاء الله نحن لهلا ونحنقدها إن شاء الله.
The empty quarter covers 250,000 square miles, an area larger than France. Yet it gets less than 1.5 inches of rainfall a year, and the average summer temperature can soar above 50 degrees in the shade. It's a bleak, harsh, stunning landscape.
It is hard, but we can cross this area.
Zaid, if I can ride a camel 40 kilometers, we can do 1,500.
الدنيان هذا الحين منا وفينا رجال بدوي ما مثل الأول هذا نو بريطانيا هذا نو بريطانيا.
Today I'm a total Bedou. I'm just putting everything on my camel myself. Even rode without my sandals.
ويمشي حافي.
That's a big thing for me.
خبيله.
Prayer.
Thank you. صلاة.
سمع الله الحميد. الله أكبر.
For Adrian, like Thesiger, being in the wilds of the empty quarter is what this journey is all about.
Today's probably been one of the best days I've had so far, yeah. This is what it was all about to me, crossing the sands, the empty quarter, this vast nothingness. I mean, I'm just gazing here in awe, just sitting on this sand dune up here. There is complete stillness, quiet, peace. And these sand dunes, they're quite mesmerizing because, especially when the lights early morning and at night, when the shadows fall on it, you can see these beautiful ripples of sand. You're sort of drawn, hypnotized by them when you walk by them. And can't take your eyes off. Just look at the shapes, the contours, and like you do a mountain.
On the second day at sunset, we saw sands stretching across our front, a shimmering rose-coloured wall, seemingly as intangible as a mirage. I was content to look in silence upon that long-awaited vision.
The team routine is well established now, stopping at sunset to feed and water the camels, cook around the campfire, and sleep under the stars. Day 22, and the team have covered just under half of their 1,600-kilometre journey. They still have a long way to go to be in the UAE in time for National Day on the 2nd of December.
This is actually a rare sight, a bit of flash of green in the desert. There's obviously water here, so I don't know how good this water will be, but let's... what we know of the water, it's pretty dirty now, pretty undrinkable, but we'll have to go and have a look. Oh. So Shash, do you want some of this lovely special grass? Ah, that's interesting. Camels don't seem like it at all, where they can sense the water is dirty. Well, I'll have a look in a minute just to go through and see what it's like. Go on, come and have a look. Come on, it's really good stuff. Do not want it.
In Thesiger's day, wells and oases like this one at Abu Dhabi were significantly more numerous and the water in them more drinkable.
Well, this looks great. Absolutely great. Oh! Whoa! This looks clean, but it smells like rotten eggs. Sulfur rotten eggs. That's all I can describe it. I think, you know, the way these water wells worked, as the water's been depleted, I imagine it's gone down, you know, deeper into the ground. It's just dried up, so you've got more of the salts of the earth coming into the water and making it a little bit, well, the boys say caprit, which is just bad water. You know, the only way Thesiger managed to do his travels in the empty quarter was firstly taking an army of people with all supplies, but also going from oasis to oasis, from Bedu camp to Bedu camp. And it's a reality of 2011 that you just can't just relying on this water for the next 7 days.
The empty quarter is a land of contrasts, from hidden oases to sand dunes that reach as high as 250 meters, and vast salt flats. All need to be crossed if the guys are to reach Abu Dhabi on the Persian Gulf.
Well, this is the famous Samin, the sinking sand, and it's just one massive salt plain, one massive subka, and pretty spectacular.
The team are in the heart of the Samin quicksands. Now, as 65 years ago, the thin salt crust conceals danger below.
Abu Dhabi, وقف شباب. Abu Dhabi, بلد.
The ground of white gypsum powder was covered with a sand-sprinkled crust of salt. Only a slight darkening of the surface indicated the bog below. I took a few steps forward and Stayun put his hand on my arm, saying, "Don't go any nearer, it is dangerous."
Purely hard as rock salt. Apparently it's some of the finest salt around.
Water collects and evaporates in this shallow basin, leaving mineral traces which over the years concentrate into pure salt. This crust seals in the wet sand, creating the legendary quicksands that have dogged travellers ancient and modern.
9 inches of soggy, sandy mud, basically. Never seen anything like this. This is, I mean, I've lived in this part of the world for quite a while, and I've never seen anything like this. Just a sea of salt. It's a beautiful but brutal terrain. It's not easy. Nothing lives out here for a good reason. I mean, they say about the desert always wins. You can't hold back a desert. And what we've seen is old tracks being swallowed up by the sands. It's a harsh landscape. You just realize that this is a hard place. Hard place to travel through, hard place to live, hard place to survive.
Two days later, and with the UAE a short day's ride away, it's time to say a fond farewell to their Omani companions.
Okay, Shabab, this is Hind Masalama. Sorry to see you go.
وإذا الله وجوههم مرة ولا قصروا ونبعكم إذا متينا ما تمل.
وجودكم. حياك الله. شكرا. شكرا جزيلا. شكرا أبو دافيد. شكرا. راشد. شكرا جزيلا. عبد الله. شكرا. حيا محمد. اوكي. اوكي. مع السلامة شباب. بشوفك بعدين إن شاء الله. شبابك في سوها في مسقط إن شاء الله.
إن شاء الله. أوكي.
إن شاء الله. يلا خلينا نروح.
يلا.
Adrian, Saeed and Gafan head off on their own to the Emirates border.
Okay, we are on the last leg finished, Oman. There is the Emirates in front of us. Said and Ghafan are very happy. Ghafan, hello, hello. Here we are, walking the last few yards into the UAE. This is the United Arab Emirates. All the way that way, and all the way that way.
A 2,500 kilometre fence marks the UAE border with Oman and Saudi. It also marks the start of the final phase of the team's epic journey across the empty quarter.
Now that end is becoming a little bit closer, there is an element of thinking, I've actually loved it. This isn't a bad life, you know, this simple life of eating, moving from place to place, sleeping under the stars, talking around a campfire. You know, these are magical moments, and I think I'm not wishing it to end.
والرحلة بحد ذاتها كان حاجز شوي قوي لنا، صعوبة كبيرة فيها لقيناها، والحمد لله على نية الشباب على عزمهم خطينا هاي المراحل.
Saeed and Ghafan are back on home ground and looking forward to National Day in 5 days' time, which this year marks the 40th anniversary of the UAE's formation. It's one of the biggest events on the Emirates calendar.
وعلمنا فرحة الاتحاد ونحن يوم صغار وربينا ونفرح ويا أهلنا بعيد الاتحاد. نحن جينا رحالة عظهوري بوش وقطعنا بلاد وقطعنا دروب وقطعنا وديان وقطعنا العراقيب. كلنا لجل نشارك فرحة دولة الإمارات بهذا اليوم.
They've been waiting for this for quite a while. The boys, they want to come home, and they're all very excited. There is, I've felt in the last few years, a greater emphasis on celebrating this union of 7 very different sheikdoms, which came together in 1971. I think it's a real show that it's one nation, which has achieved a huge amount, to be honest, in such a short history, a huge amount.
The team's spirits are running high as they sing and dance their way over the sands. Coming up, the team battle across the sand dunes to be in time for National Day. Day 30. Adrian Hayes and his 2 companions, Saeed Rashid Al-Masafri and Ghafan Mohammed Al-Jabri, are heading north into the sand dunes to reach the Leewa oasis for the National Day celebrations in just 3 days' time. Adrian and the team are 2/3 of the way through their journey across the empty quarter in the footsteps of Wilfred Thesiger. They've travelled nearly 1,000 kilometres through the Rab al Khali. There's still more than 500 kilometres to Abu Dhabi on the Arabian Gulf.
Tuesday, 29th of November, day 30. Somewhere on these tracks, Thesiger came through, crossing the sands of Leewa. And we got an interesting couple of days ahead.
In the deep desert, there's nothing except sand, dunes and wind.
We're now right in the thick of Leewa. We just got to go through the sands, just picking the best way you can get through this. To me, this is the real stuff. This is the real McCoy, the real what Thesiger had to do. It's the navigational challenge, picking the best routes. This is the stuff I came on this trip to do.
Crossing the dunes is a struggle for both man and beast. The camels have to be dragged up the steeper dunes, often resorting to kneeling their way up.
Said,
I wondered how much more these camels would stand, for they were trembling violently whenever they halted. When one refused to go on, we heaved on her head rope, pushed her from behind, and manhandled the roaring animal upward.
من بروبلم والكامل تدريب أن الطريق صعب لكنها إن شاء الله أن نكمل. العالم تخاطب طيارات ما تخاطب مشي. قطعنا لنا كيلو حول ساعة كاملة كيلو زيادة عن ساعة.
You keep on the crests, the ridges of the dunes as much as you can because the sound is firmer. So you're following this ridge lines as much as you can.
والله يملنا إن شاء الله ونكمل. والله والكاميرا تعبت شوي. اللي يتعثر في العرقوب واللي.
They're finding it hard, and you can see their resistance. When they see something beyond what is comfortable to them, they balk, they back off. I was pulling Bashash with all my strength to try and get him up that slope, and he wouldn't have it. And the camel was stronger than me.
The next morning, after battling across the dunes, the team finally arrive at the famous Leewa oasis, a 100-kilometre crescent-shaped strip of date palms and greenery housing some 50 villages, all fed by an underground water supply. It's the 2nd of December, National Day, one of the most important days in the United Arab Emirates, and this year is the 40th anniversary. Adrian, Saeed and Ghafan cover the final 30 kilometres along the main Leewa road, their camels draped in the national flag. As sun sets over the ancient fort of Meziera, the festivities begin, with a grand welcome for the intrepid explorers, with stories to share and typical Arabic hospitality. Out on the streets, the local kids are celebrating in their own way, honking their horns, yelling greetings, and letting off fireworks. The celebrations go on long into the night. And the next morning, there's something else to celebrate. When Ghafan set out on this trip 34 days ago, his wife was expecting their first child.
Okay, Ghafan.
Yeah.
كيف الحال؟ شو خبر؟ شو خبر؟ Tell what happened.
Today in the morning,
Yes.
my wife get children.
Get her first child.
Yes, first child. We can now father.
Your father.
Yes.
Mabruk.
Name Arim.
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 Arim is the name.
Yes.
Mumtaz.
Yes.
Mabruk. مبروكتين مبروك.
أقبالك إن شاء الله. أقبالك.
So that's our big news today. I think nothing. I mean, your first child. I mean, this is great. بتروح من المستشفى. إن شاء الله. بعدين expedition. Okay, that's the news.
As Adrian and Saeed set off, Ghafan heads home to see his wife and greet his new baby daughter. He'll be rejoining the team tomorrow morning.
حليلها. الحمد لله كانوا اليوم وصلنا لمدينة العين وسميناها الريم. والله يحفظها إن شاء الله. والحمد لله. الله يرزق كل مسلم.
5 days later, as the team reach the city of Al Ain, there's another surprise. But this time it's for Saeed. His eldest brother, Jamal Abu Rashed, has turned up unexpectedly.
My brother Jamal, هذا أخويا وأبويا وربيعي الخاص، وسهيل موجود ونحن مبسوطين والحمد لله. اللهم اكرم.
When Said was just a year old, his father died. So his older brother really raised him as like a son and really looked after him. So I think there's a huge respect from Said. He's talked about his older brother the whole trip, you know, how important he is to him. So, yeah, it's a special time for him, very special.
وهذا الرجال له فضل علي وايد أنا، ويميله ما رده هموم. نعم. له يميله رقبتي ما رمى سده. لا غير الله يملني إلا. نعم، وإحنا مبسوطين والحمد لله أبو راشد موجود. الدنيا كلها بخير ويسدني عن قوم كلها مرة. رباني وعلمني الزين من الشين. حفظنا الحمد لله من كل شر، احنا واخواننا نحافظ الله رب العالمين، لكنه هو الرجال وعلمنا الحمد لله على طول عمرك على الركاب. يوم احنا صغار يشلنا يركبنا لانه يعلمنا الصبر. ويته هاي عندي يمن قاطع له دار وواصل هني اليوم هاي تسوى وايد هاي.
والله وياك يا
مثل صايد اولاد. كيفو صايد صغير.
حتى معك يوم تصغيره؟
الحين هو يتكلم كل يوم. نفس الشيء
اول يوم صغير مشكله زياده.
ما بزين انت.
الحين سعيد شوي زين، اول صغير مشكله.
نعم.
With the meal over, it's time to move on again. As they travel into the suburbs of Al Ain, they pass close to the famous cliffs of Jebel Hafit, which tower over the oasis city. The team are heading for Fort Jahili, the former summer residence of the nation's founding father, Sheikh Zayed I, and now home to the Thesiger Museum.
As we came out of the red dunes onto the gravel plain, I could see Zayed's fort, a large square enclosure of which the mud walls were 10 feet high. To the right of the fort was a garden of dusty, ragged palm trees, and beyond the palms, Jebel Hafit.
Media interest in the team and their epic journey is starting to build, and there are photographers and TV crews waiting for Adrian and the guys. But for Adrian, Saeed and Ghafan, the two most important people at the fort are Salem bin Gabaisha and Salem bin Gabina, Thesiger's original companions. As boys in the 1940s, they accompanied him on his journeys across the empty quarter. Now old men, they're keen to share their stories with the young pretenders. The 5 desert explorers sit in the shade and compare notes.
ما مشكلة أعطونا علمكم من صرحتوا ويتوا كيه وسرتوا وش تعبتوا الصبح تصرحون الساعة كم؟
احنا سرح الصبح مرة بدري. نعم الهجر.
ومتى تنزلون؟
كان رينا الدرب سامحة سرنا لين الساعة حتى 7 7:30 لين قراب العشاء ما نوقف.
أيوة.
وقفنا ومرة احنا ربطنا حلالنا وعابلنا عشانا وسولفنا على الضوء شوي.
سمع احنا رحلتنا.
نعم. رحلتنا غير.
وقت غير هذاك
وقتنا غير ورحلتنا غير. الماء ما فيه، الأكل ما فيه، هذاك خوف. سير هذاك ما حد يسيره.
تعب.
أبدا لو تنطبق ما يصير ما حد يصيره. 16 ليل ما وردنا ماء. 16 ليل.
كيف المبارك بن لندن؟
نعم بارك بن لندن.
ايوه.
الصبر يصبر، الخوف ما يعرفه. شفت؟
ايوه.
من عنديته هو نعم، في كل حاله هو نعم. الله رب يضرب ناتوفه يكحل الريوب. شفت؟ ما في حية عوفه، كله زين.
It was a real honor, special meeting these guys. I mean, we had, a lovely chat, an all too brief chat, to be honest. What we've done only scratches the surface of what it was like for these guys 65 years ago. A very special experience meeting them both.
With just a few days left until they're due at the coast of Abu Dhabi, the team make their way along busy roads. The end is in sight. Finally, across the water, Abu Dhabi Island. Now very different than when Wilfred Thesiger was here in 1948.
We descended to the creek that separates Abu Dhabi from the mainland. We waded through the sea, rested for a while at the stone fort which guards the ford, and then went on to the town.
I've driven past this fort many, many, many times, but I'm looking at it today in a completely different light. I'm really looking at the past here. We've touched many places that Thesiger went to, and this is really the final landmark of his journey, because everything else beyond there is completely new.
Hey, Adrian.
He's crying.
Today, finishing today.
Finished. أكثر يوم.
محمد. شو أبغاتك؟ ها؟ Adrian, today I'm happy.
ختامية اليوم
I am
بداية.
unhappy. Last night I can't sleep. Think.
Yep.
ومحمد هذا أبو داعية طال عمرك.
لا داعية الرحلة.
لا داعية
مو شيء غيرها رحلة.
لا شيء رحلات غيرها إن شاء الله. والحين إن شاء الله بنتلاقى دوب وبنتواصل دوب إن شاء الله.
لا ما نحتاج بالمواصلة نحن لأني اللي عاد أخوينا مشكلة.
Adrian, are you remember or not remember after expedition? Remember?
You? Said and Gafan?
Yes.
Nah, forget.
Forget?
Gafan al-Masafri?
I will put you in the sea.
Never. No.
64 years ago, when Thesiger came here, Abu Dhabi was just a small pearl fishing village. Now, thanks to its vast oil reserves, it's a wealthy and thoroughly modern city, the capital of the United Arab Emirates. The team ride their camels across one of the 3 bridges that today carry 24 lanes of traffic onto Abu Dhabi Island.
I was just pinching myself, laughing on my camel. What a finale! You couldn't have wanted for better than this. So that's a great way to finish a trip, and it's finished on a real high.
With a full police escort, Adrian Hayes, Saeed Rashid Al Masafri, and Ghafan Mohammed Al Jabri cover the remaining few miles into the heart of the busy metropolis.
It doesn't get much better than this. We got cars everywhere, police everywhere. A lot of people beeping their horns, cheering us, taking pictures. That's quite exciting.
Finally arriving on the coast of the Persian Gulf on the 13th of December 2011.
I'm unlikely to do this ever again, anything like it, to be honest. So there's a lot of memories to savor.
They left Salalah in Oman 44 days ago and have ridden their camels 1,600 kilometers across the empty quarter, the Rab al Khali.
والله الربع الخالي طال عمرك طبيعة شبه الجزيرة العربية يمكن أحلى طبيعة في شبه الجزيرة العربية.
الربع الخالي منطقة طيبة حلوة لكن صادفتنا فيها مصاعب. لكن الحمد لله الإنسان يوم يحط خاطر شيء ويعزم على شيء ما بيرد شيء إلا كان رب العالمين كاتب له.
They've experienced searing heat, serious head injuries and exhaustion. But they've also witnessed the kindness of strangers and have been treated like honoured guests by the Bedouins of the desert.
I think I'll cherish all the welcomes in the villages that we came to, all that hospitality. I'll cherish the memories of sleeping under the stars every night, and I'll cherish the parts of the trip where we really were in the middle of nowhere, and I looked over this vast landscape of sand dune after sand dune after sand dune. It felt a hugely privileged place to be, a hugely privileged experience to be through.
Through hardship and camaraderie, they've forged a deep friendship as they followed in the footsteps of one of the world's greatest explorers, Mubarak bin London, Wilfred Thesiger.
For years, the empty quarter had represented to me the final, unattainable challenge which the desert offered. Suddenly, it had come within my reach. Now I had crossed it. To others, my journey would have little importance. It was a personal experience, and the reward had been a drink of clean, nearly tasteless water. I was content with that.